Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, I take this time. This is my personal time, guys, that I get a chance to say thank you to our guests because I know they are coming with a couple of things. I personally, very expensive time. What a commodity. Many of us do not understand the value of it. But here, Dr. St. John is here to share some of this valuable stuff with us while he's here at Threads of Enlightenment. The other is his journey that housed him, that created who he is today. And we are honored to be in his presence to learn of him and of his wisdom, his gifts that he has, so that you and I can become better human spirits while we are here on this planet. Dr. St. John, thank you for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
What I do currently is, well, to start with, 2 weeks ago, I celebrated my 80th birthday.
Well,
So,
congratulations.
yeah, thank you. I'm not doing as much as I used to, on one hand. On the other, I'm doing quite a bit. I'm doing frequent podcasts. I wrote a book, rewrote the book titled Healing the Wounds of Childhood and Culture, an adventure of a lifetime. I still
Yeah.
see patients, clients, 7 or 8 every week. I am a minister, we call it Mestre, in a Brazilian Christian church.
Mhm.
And I talk to great people like yourself. Uh,
Thank you.
yeah.
You know, thank you. Well, welcome. Well, we have a custom that we do here, Doc, is after you've given us this wonderful picture of what you have done today, we like to go back into the first space, if you will, that we visit as we are here on this planet. I should rephrase that and say the second. The first, most of us are in a hospital, unless we have a midwife that is home with us, as the old days were. But we would be residing in that house, and we have family members and so forth there, mom and dad, that are now going to impart their wisdom as well as their trauma based on whatever trauma they had in their life. They are seeing the world through those lenses, and they are now going to impart into us what they perceive is wisdom from the space of trauma. What was your family unit like?
Uh, my family, most of them came from Italy. My mother's parents came from Italy. My father was born and reared in Italy. And it was during World War II, right in the middle of the war, that I was born.
Oh.
And I almost died. I had a near death experience at birth with the cord wrapped around my neck. My mother said it was the consummate skill of the obstetrician who saved my life. So that was a tough beginning. And then, as I like to joke, it got worse from there in many ways.
That is funny. How worse can you get, Doc?
Well, my mother was a very passionate woman, but
Mhm.
her impulse control was awful. She
Yeah.
wanted to be a model. She wanted to break out of the mold. You know, she grew up during the roaring 20s and she wanted to step out of the constraints of her family, but she
Yeah.
just didn't have the courage and support. So she married a good Italian guy whom she didn't like very much,
Yeah.
and her frustration tolerance just was terrible. And she even bragged about it that she gave me my first slap in the face when I was 11 months old. Uh,
Wow.
and it pretty much continued and became almost a daily ritual. My grandmother would plead with me on New Year's Day to try not to get hit that day because she had a superstition that if I did, I'd get it every day for the next 365 days of the year. So,
Wow.
I'd usually make it until about 7, 8 at night, and then I'd get slapped for something or other. So,
Yeah.
it was intense. And my father was, well, I'll give you one incident which is emblematic of my father's relationship with me. In the
Mm.
seventh grade, I won an inter-school catechism contest. It was a big deal in the
Yeah.
diocese.
Yeah.
Seven
Yeah.
or eight schools would send their three top boys. And now I won the gold medal. I brought it home. I showed it to my father. He looked at it and he says, "Hey, take it down to the delicatessen. Give them a dime. They'll give you a cup of coffee." So,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
What did that do to you, Doc? As a young, how old were you at this time when you won that? And
I
that
was
response, what did it
12,
do to you?
13,
12,
12,
13.
13. Well, I won it again the following year, but this time I didn't tell my father. So,
uh,
you know, as I look back, Ken, I loved what you said to me before we began recording about we're all traumatized.
yeah.
And that was one of the biggest insights I had along the way is, people presume there's a normal. And if they
Yeah.
have issues like depression, for example, they want to go back to normal. And
Yes.
normal doesn't exist. This
Yeah.
mythical normal that, the majority enjoy and
Yeah.
the minority are injured emotionally, mentally in some way simply doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I came to realize, yes, I was a mess. Going into my adulthood, my self esteem was such I had to look up to see the belly of an ant crawling. That's how poorly I
Yeah.
felt
Yeah.
about myself. My relationships, especially with women, were terrible and difficult, challenging. And mostly I was frozen.
Yeah.
That's disconnected from my body, disconnected from my emotions, disconnected from other people, disconnected
Wow.
from nature, disconnected from any sense of source. So, it was either live a very miserable life or do something. And I did
Yeah.
something, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
One
I
morning,
have a theory. I have a theory, Doc, about normal. I believe that normal is, and I tell people that normal to me means the invisible fence by which they try to keep us corralled in. It doesn't exist. We don't
yes,
know what that means, but it is designed to control us to some degree. And so we are all trying to attain this normalcy that is something that is never, ever there. It's never been there, never will be there. And I think that's how they control us. And that's just my theory, but I think I'm onto something. Go
yeah, I
ahead.
think you're onto something as well, Ken, and I think we participate in that. We
Oh
participate
yes,
in
yes,
controlling ourselves, and
yes,
also feeling victimized by the system,
yes. It's
which,
designed for that. I believe it
yes,
is.
yes, and it's a double-edged sword here because, you know, the system does victimize us.
Hmm.
It tells us that we're here to accumulate as many toys as we can accumulate in a lifetime, and that's the mark of success.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
we're here to do. In and of itself, that's trauma supporting, let's say. Okay.
Yes.
Uh, and we also want to reach a point where we recognize that we write the script. That
Yes.
was one of
Yes.
the biggest moments for me, is in that realization that, okay, all that is true. And it's that big and I write
Hmm.
the script. I'm in charge. I'm in
Yes.
charge of my life.
I believe, Doc, when we get there, again, this is just my personal thesis, if you will. I believe that when we get there at that point right there, I
Mm-hmm.
call that, to me, is the beginning of enlightenment. And enlightenment to me, Doc, means that you and I are on the journey to understand ourselves. To me, as I began to understand me, my understanding of everything else from the began to um, clarify as I dig deeper into me and see the pain, the agony, all of it, and learn to love me within all of that mess. And look at myself and say, Ken, you are perfect as you are. You are a being that is learning about you, and be kind to yourself to allow yourself to feel certain place and do certain things. And so when I began to learn about me, Doc, I began to grow, and I became a designer of my life. And I tell people there are two people that are living, two types, regardless of all the other things: the designers of their life, or the default livers, the people who are living default lifestyle. You're up every morning, you get up, punch the clock, you run, whatever. But then there are those that are tapped on the shoulder through some circumstances in life that wake us up to the fact that we are different than normal, if you will. And when
Yes.
we began to embark on that journey, I believe those ones, for lack of a better words, I think they're the ones that are normal, if you will, because they're plugging back into the original state from which they came from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I call it we're perfect with our imperfections.
Yes, I love that. So here, Doc, you are. This picture that you painted was a person that is in pain, disconnected in every way, from people, from society, from source, from your God, from yourself, from everything. You just disconnected. Now you are moving through life. Where were you in your life journey, if you will, in your 20s? Where were you in relationship to you? Were you aware of you at that time? Or were you still in the mode of moving through life in pain and so forth?
Well, no, I think I'd begun the journey in my early 20s. I was in the Air Force. I went
Hmm.
directly from high school. 2 days later, I enlisted in the Air Force. I never got to fly, I was on the ground. Uh,
Yeah.
and one day, I was stationed in Tampa. It was my fourth and final year. And I woke up in the back seat of my car and I was bleeding from my throat, having been out all night drinking and hollering and screaming and whatever I was doing. I burst a
Yeah.
vessel and it
Oh,
scared
wow.
me. And when I got home from work that day, after going to the hospital and being reassured that it wasn't anything serious, I went to the Yellow Pages and looked up a psychiatrist who worked on Saturdays. And I
Hmm.
made an appointment. And I went in, and it began the journey. He was a
Wow.
terrible psychotherapist, but he said one sentence that changed my life. He said, "Get a Ph.D." And I said, "You're kidding.
Mm.
I hardly went to high school because I
Yeah.
emotionally and intellectually quit high school on the second day of my second year. That was it. I saw one of my fellow students get beat up by our
Hmm.
geometry teacher. And, I had had enough violence in my life by then.
Yeah.
It just shut me down. And I went through the motions, went to the public school the next year and finished high school, but hardly ever took a book home for 3 years.
Wow.
Went into the Air Force. There, I began taking some college courses. The University of
Hmm.
Maryland has an overseas program. I was stationed in Bermuda, and I started taking college courses, and they treated us like adults, and I liked
Yeah.
it. So my
Yeah.
therapist said, "Get a PhD," and
Hmm.
a few years later, I was in a PhD program at the University of Kansas. And
Yeah. You
one
said that
thing led to
that
another,
made it
Ken.
different. What happened, Doc? What happened when he said that to you? Because you said he made that statement, and that statement changed your life. What happened when he said that to you? What took place?
Well, at first, I was incredulous.
Hmm.
Again, I did not see myself as college material, much less a PhD candidate.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but here's this, I thought he came from God. He had degrees from Harvard and Johns Hopkins. He's a medical
Yeah.
doctor, a and here I am,
Yeah. Yeah.
this Italian kid from New York, and here's
Hmm.
this guy telling me to get a PhD. I said, maybe I can.
And you stepped out. You remember the process of of taking the steps to get there. How, as you were taking those steps, talk to us as to what was going through your mind, because you have you may have had some apprehension. Should I do this or whatever? What was going on in your mind as you were taking the steps, heading
I
in that
think
direction, if you will?
at the deepest level of my mind, Ken, was the fear they're going to find out.
Yeah.
I got accepted into college to my
Hmm.
surprise, but they're going to find out. I'm a fraud. I don't belong here. I
Yeah.
don't have the intellectual equipment to compete, to survive even at
Yeah.
this level. And I went through college with a 3.8. But I knew
Wow.
one of these days they were going to find out. And I went to graduate school.
Yeah.
And now for sure, I took easy
Yeah.
courses, social studies, like
Yeah.
psychology, anthropology, sociology.
Yeah.
Uh, but now they're going to really find out. And that fear was always, it was a haunting kind of fear. And once
Wow.
again, I excelled in graduate school. Uh, yeah, and then my perception began to open up, and one of the things I realized was that I had to address my body, and that was
Hmm.
major insight that tension, that chronic disconnection between
Yeah.
brain and body had to be directly addressed. It wasn't going to be reached simply through talk therapy.
Yeah. So what was your journey like to get that? Because that's um, a major thing first to behold within yourself, to witness, and then the realization that I need to get this together. What steps did you take to begin to get that together? Because that's major stuff that you're about to embark on your life, in your life. What did that look like? That journey of putting that together?
Well, I began reading the work of Wilhelm Reich. And
Hmm.
Reich was a disciple of Sigmund Freud. He was touted to be the heir apparent to Freud, and he was a highly respected analyst until he
Hmm.
started talking about the body. And
Hmm.
in fact, he said, look, the personality and the body predict each other. They're functionally equivalent. If you can see the body, you'll know the personality and vice versa. And,
Yeah.
at that point, his colleagues told him he was crazy. And he did
Yeah.
become eventually, he went farther and farther out, but it spoke to me.
Mm.
And then I started reading about Rolfing, structural
Yeah.
integration,
Mm.
uh, which basically attempts to directly change the body through manual manipulation. And
Yeah.
it made perfect sense to me. So I went down that path.
Yeah.
Psychedelics can played a role back then.
Yeah.
It really opened my mind to possibilities that
Yeah.
this very dry, I lived in a very dry material reality. And psychedelics popped that open
Yeah.
and said there's so much more to life than what
Yeah.
I'd been perceiving and experiencing. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. I know the psychedelics. I tell people um, it's like the elevator. If you understand the purpose of it, you will get to the destination faster than the others because usually through meditation, where you get there, when you're beginning your journey, psychedelics help because of all the doubt and the unbelief, if you will. It gets you past those things pretty fast, where you are open to, um, um, you have an openness, if you will, versus if you're just sitting there and things are happening and you begin to question and prevent. You're taking the stairs, I would tell people, versus going to the elevator. But you'll
I,
get there,
I like
but
that
you'll get there at
metaphor.
a different, you'll get there eventually, but the elevator takes you a little faster. And so you get a chance to grow faster because you see that there's no limitation when you get there. But on the stairs, you're breathing a little hard. You're looking at some of your limitations, but um, and so it's not. I tell people about this, Doc. You have to have them. You cannot do that with fearfulness because it can take you the wrong path. You have to
Mhm.
You have to do that open-minded, not fearful-minded, or you will get lost because I've seen that before as well.
Absolutely.
So
Mhm.
as you begin to incorporate the psychedelics and begin to look at yourself on the inner side from the different vantage point, if you will, Don, what were some of those things that you began to notice, some of those patterns that, as you were telling your story, some of those patterns that begin to become lively to you and you began to have to deal with them? How did you begin to manage them as they were uncovered in your journey?
I think the biggest factor that I had to deal with was fear,
Yeah.
maybe even terror,
Wow.
because when an infant almost dies at birth, and
Yeah.
when mother has violent tendencies, it's terrifying,
Yeah.
and it freezes, it literally freezes the tissues of our body so they lose
Hmm.
that sense of warm vitality. And
Yeah.
so it was a process of melting. I'd say that was
Yeah.
one of the biggest processes that I engaged over time, was melting, softening, uh, being open. My
Hmm.
thinking was very rigid. It was very black
Yeah.
or white. It just it lacked nuance, and to gradually change all that, I would say that was the a main thread of my journey. Um,
Wow. This is
and
powerful, powerful stuff. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and one of the biggest insights, Ken, you articulated it when we first spoke about we're all traumatized. We all have trauma. and
Mm-hmm.
it can happen even by a simple misperception. The example you
Yes.
gave of the child whose mother says, I'm busy and can't attend, and experiences it as a rejection, and he makes a decision about his lovability based on
Yeah.
several of those instances. We all
Yeah.
experience trauma. It's only a matter of degree and a matter of
Mm-hmm.
style. And
Yes.
I believe, and I think if I had to choose one message to offer the world, it would be this: we are here to heal, to
Yeah.
become whole, and to
Yeah.
shine our light into the world. And, we're not
100%.
here, to be normal.
Yes.
We're here to shine our light, to serve, to help,
Yes.
to glow from the inside with
Yeah.
clarity, with peace in our hearts, with love
Yeah.
in our hearts. So even at the grocery store, when
Yeah.
we give our credit card to the attendant at the grocery store, we radiate just a little bit of love, just a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
light that touches that person and facilitates their having a good day.
Yeah. I agree 100%, Doc. I believe that that's why we're here. The reason why I believe that, and I'd say to people, all of us are traumatized. I was at the birth of my children and I saw all of it, and it was trauma. And um, it to me spoke volumes because here is a natural event. And I believe that in the spiritual world, it is the same way by which we are given birth, if you will, in our journey through trauma. The trauma is designed to bring the best out of us, I tell people. It wasn't designed to cripple us. It was designed to bring the best out of us,
I love that.
because it there are people that have a need for the information that you will be trusted through your journey, because you are one that was noted that would graduate, if you will, the class. And knowing this, that you would be one of the graduates, that there are other students outside or potential students outside that needs your love, that needs your empathy, that needs you to come through, so that when you, in a book or in as a speaker at some event, you are able now to speak to that person, and they will cling on to your words because you were prepared for them and they were waiting for you. And I believe that's the cycle that we are all a part of, all of us, Doc.
I completely agree. And, the challenge is this: you're saying that, I'm saying that, and yet most people don't get that message
Yeah.
unless you start looking outside of the box that you were
Mm-hmm.
born and raised into. You don't hear that message, and you deny the need for healing. You deny the wounds that were there, uh,
Yeah.
or you see them as curses almost, something
Yeah.
that you
Mm-hmm.
have to get rid of to return to that mythical normal that we spoke about. You know, this message changes the world, Ken,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
I agree.
and the
Uh,
systems that we build that would be aligned with this message are very, very different than the systems that we've built and live in. And when you
mm-hmm.
talk about they put that invisible fence around us to control us, well, this is what we're talking about. This message gets rid of that fence once it's
Yes.
received.
Yes, I agree. And I tell many of the sicknesses and disease that came out of the health field, many of them are the source of them, I believe, though, were from traumas. I think trauma is a energetic force that is trapped within the body, and because we are programmed to suppress all that energetic field we are suppressing within the body. But I love how beautiful even crying is and laughing. These are
Mm,
ways by which we can
mm,
release those things that are trapped. And when one begins to experience the change of perspective, if you will, one of the things that they do, they get emotional. They'll either cry, laugh, or something because it's a release. And I tell the folks that your many of our sicknesses are our emotions trapped within the body, and the only way it can come out is when it manifests in all these other dis-ease. But it's a the trauma is an energetic thing that affects the cellular level that grows after many years and it manifests in whatever. And I tell people, fix that part of you because medicine, natural medicine or conventional medicine is not interested in healing. But when you are dealing with someone that deals with trauma, they are more into because the body is designed to heal itself. But you have to learn what tools to incorporate to begin to bring it out. And but conventional medicine is not interested in healing you because they wouldn't make enough money to get you healed. So they have to keep you sick so that you can
well,
be on
yeah.
medication where you can find your energy. If you learn how to meditate and control your energy, you can heal yourself. I've done that many times, Doc. So here you are,
Hmm.
Doc. You're in your situation and you are gaining insights. As you said, you began to deal with this thing. And as you began to deal with this thing, um, what began to happen? What began to happen? What changes did you notice started to manifest in your life? Meaning how you reacted to you and how you began to react to others, because you had said on the onset you were disconnected from everything, nature, yourself, others, all of those things. What, as you began to excavate and you began to heal, how did you manage your relationship with self and others?
Let's see. How much time do you have to answer? It's a big question, and
Yeah.
I can give you some examples, I think, that will answer it. You know, in my 20s, into my early 30s, if I
Mm.
had to stand up and say my name and where I lived, I would be scared, really
Wow.
scared of, that 10 seconds of public speaking.
Hmm.
Today, give me 500 people and I'm in my playground. I love it.
Wow.
I absolutely love it. But okay, that's one type of change that grew over the years. Another, when I first felt like a real connection with another human being, it
Mm.
shocked me. I was well into
Wow.
my 30s and I didn't know it. I simply did not know it. And when I felt it, it was, oh my God, what is this?
Mm. Yeah.
Now, today, the way I work with people, someone asked me, I was at a conference and someone asked me, what do you do as a therapist? And I answered, oh, I simply love people and see what they do with that, of course. But
Yeah.
it's really an expression of love. It's intimate. It's
Hmm.
close, and I have that kind of relationship with my wife. In my first, or my throughout my 30s into my very early 40s, I was married and divorced 3 times,
Wow.
and just beginning to understand what emotional intimacy was all about.
Hmm.
Now I'm with the same woman for 38 years,
Wow.
and it's alive. It's very close. It's very honest, and I can
Nice.
open my heart, and I can feel her heart. It's a different universe from where I
Yeah.
started.
That is such a beautiful picture to for those that are listening. Here is um, this gentleman, Doc, has been through so much, and I have been probing him because he said he was disconnected, and many of you out there may be disconnected from everything like Doc has been in his life. And Doc has put many of his wisdom and information in books, and you can also get to him. I will provide all of those things, but I want you guys to get to him that are in that space because it is a dark place. And you heard the picture that Doc talked about his wife and where she has uh, him located, how he is alive from that. And we want to invite you to come there so that you can feel that aliveness, if you will. So, Doc, here you are now. You are going through all of this changes within your life, and you got your PhD, you graduated, you are now seeing people. Did you ever had a chance to deal with that part was saying they're going to find out? Did you ever had a chance to deal with that? Because that's a big piece within our makeup that resides with us for a long time until we have a conversation, if you will, with it. What was your conversation with that thought, that feeling that you had? They're going to find out. What did it sound like, and how did it resolve itself, if you will?
Well, the way it presented was every time I'd start something new, I had the fear that this would be the one, you know,
Hmm.
undergraduate school, graduate school, private practice, writing a book. I mean, that fear was always loitering. It wasn't
Hmm.
paralyzing. I mean, I kept going. I kept putting one foot in
Yeah.
front of the other and getting the degree and doing what I wanted to do, but it was still a haunting fear that kind of gradually disappeared. And
Wow.
it's rarely ever there. It's like,
Hmm.
I, I don't have to prove my value. I don't have to prove my worthiness. And that
Yeah.
so many, I don't have percentages in mind, but so many people suffer from this haunting sense that they really don't deserve to heal, that they don't deserve to be loved, that there's some defect, some deficiency in their essence. And one thing I strive to convey to my clients, to whomever I'm speaking to, is that your essence is beautiful. You know,
Yeah.
if we could get past all that stuff, you can think of personality in 3 layers. That beautiful essence
Yeah.
covered by all the stuff that we're afraid of, covered by how we want others to see us.
Yeah.
If we can peel down, if we can get to what's really underneath it all, it's a light, it's a beauty. Just in most people that I've encountered.
I think it's a high number, Doc, because it's part of the programming that we are programmed as a society, as a group of people, as human beings. Not society, I think, is as human beings we're programmed to this thing. And when we don't know what normal is, but for some reason it's locked into our being somewhere. The level of it to try, because we know we're not there, everything else, the whole world is falling apart, and so we're evil, we're this, we're that, I'm not normal, and that's the language they'll use when they go to a physician or a psychologist or so forth. I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel normal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the language that has been given to us since we were born. And so I believe those numbers are high. I mean, it's a majority of us that are like that. And again, it's simply because of that program that is there. We are aware of it, but we don't know how to identify it, if you will, what normal is and what it looks like. But what individually it looks like for me, I'm not there. So I am ugly. I am fat. I am this, and I am everything else. But we see that even with the models, that they are parading in front of the girls and saying to them that this is perfection. And then when you hear those girls' story about how they're maintaining that perfection,
Mm.
it's horrific,
Mm.
what they're doing. And they have to make sure they can't eat. They try to eat and then vomit, and what they do to maintain that perfection, even when they are what we think we're looking at perfection, it really is not perfection. And that, I think, those numbers are high. So you will always have that as part of the programming, that you would have to have the conversation to deprogram. And just like deprogramming in anyone in any kind of thing, can be difficult. But if the person is open-minded to a different perspective, life begins to become beautiful, and they begin to change and enjoy it a little more. So here you are, Doc. You got your books.
May I
Go
say
ahead. Go
one
ahead.
thing about
Yeah,
what
please.
you were just
Please.
speaking about? That there's a misunderstanding of the body that contributes to that horrendous problem that you just described. People trying to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And that is not realizing that the body has two sides, the inside, or let me say it another way, the body as you experience it from the inside, your connection to your body. Okay. And from the outside, it's the body that I see. And if I had 100 people here, they'd all see, your body there, right?
Yeah.
But only you know it from the inside. And
Mm-hmm.
it's building that connection from the inside that's so important. We think it's getting it to look a certain way, hoping that
Yeah.
that would make us feel a certain way.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Is that
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
okay?
Absolutely makes sense, and that's the economy that we have. That is that is just, but it makes sense. And that's I guess, the piece that we have to come uh, to be honest with, or become truthful with, and accepting who we are. So I want you to talk to me, Doc, about your journey about loving yourself, because you have to, man, you got some things you got to work out, and you have to come to grips with yourself. How did you do this, Doc?
That's a very good question. I think one of the most powerful realizations that I had was that, I could lie with the best of them. And not so much, deliberate lies like I ate two cookies instead of 10, but
Yeah,
just not telling the truth of my experience. That was one. And two, not realizing how important it was to keep my commitments, to keep my
yeah,
word, that if I, made commitments loosely, if I told somebody I'd meet them at 10 o'clock and showed up at 10:45, that kind of stuff reinforced a negative sense of myself.
hmm
That the more I could honor what I said I was going to do, keep my word, keep my commitments, start feeling better about myself.
yeah,
Uh, and also realizing that we're all in the same boat. We're all here to do what we've talked about already in this show, shine our lights, work through, heal the wounds. Uh, and I began developing more of a sense of compassion. I think that's been really important. I catch myself very quickly when I'm judging somebody
yeah,
and, realize, wait a minute, come on, I do
yeah,
the same thing or would do the same thing, things like that. Uh, we're all connected.
yeah. We
We're
all are.
all
We all are,
we're all
Doc. And
brothers and sisters of the same great force.
yeah,
that
we all came from the same location. I tell people the
Yeah.
same location. I just have a different house to
Yep.
keep me. I said the body is here designed to keep us local on this planet. And when we have no need for the body anymore, we release the body and we are able to produce and progress to the next dimension, if you will. But it is the byproduct that keeps me local, if you will, here on this planet. And we shouldn't be um, picking on someone or causing disagreement because of one's color versus another. It's just a
Mm.
byproduct of part of being here that keeps us all local. And I think it's an opportunity where we get a chance to um, have a great conversation. I tell people this about life and about all of
Hmm.
us. I believe it is like a canvas, a plain canvas paper. We're all artists to a degree. You are creating your designing your life with your words. I am designing mine. Others are designing theirs. We are in this classroom painting. And I tell people I use blue differently than they may use blue. They look over and they see my painting. One shouldn't be critical of the way I use my colors. I shouldn't look at you and be critical of how you use your colors, how you design your life. I shouldn't be critical of it. What should be the conversation is like, wow, that's a fascinating way to utilize blue or green. I never saw that you could utilize a green or blue like that. And once you engage in a conversation like that, I don't think there's room for anguish and judgment when we're looking at each other as artists painting on a canvas, utilizing the color. That's all it is. And we are learning to be better at our craft as we grow together. And as you said earlier, my light shines, your light shines, and we ought to cause this crescendo of brightness as we begin to learn about each other, as we learn about ourselves. And so that's my take, I guess, my thesis, Doc, that I'm working with in life. When I meet someone, I am
Uh-huh.
meeting a fellow artist that uses their colors differently.
Yeah, and it's such a spacious attitude that you're expressing. You know, it has so much room in there
Yeah.
for different combinations of color and, you know,
Yes.
styles,
Mm-hmm.
shades, uh,
Yes.
and you know that spaciousness is healthy for ourselves
Oh, yeah.
because it's opposite. You know,
Mm-hmm.
is a constriction that affects all the systems of our body in a negative way and
Yeah.
contributes to illness.
Yeah. As I was saying earlier, I know, Doc, of many people that were ill, and once they release certain things, certain energies within them, forgiveness, uh, unforgiveness is a tremendous thing. I've seen that force um, cripple people's hands and arthritis to a degree. And once they release and forgive, I've seen them got healed. I've seen people that refuse to forgive and die in their sicknesses and so forth. So I've learned that diseases also manifest from trauma and these different energies that reside within the body that we are not giving them permission to leave. We call them forgiveness, but that's allowing energetic belief, and all those things to be released out of you. All of those different things that one has to do on their journey in order to become a better human spirit. So here you are, Doc. You are married and growing and learning from your relationship. You have your books now, and you are able to communicate with others about who they are. I want you to invite us into one of those conversations, if you will, when someone comes to you and invite us into that conversation so we can partake of that divine revelation. I think it is one of the most powerful events on the planet is when you're having this conversation with someone, Doc, and their lights, if you will, of their understanding begins to change. Their perspective began to move from the old into the new as they're beginning to see the greatness within them. And you see that spark that kicks in. That is beauty. That is power. Talk to us, invite us to one of those that you've had, and I know you've had many, that where you saw that transition, if you will, from dark to light.
Well, what just came to mind, this isn't exactly what you're asking me to do, but when I was speaking 5 minutes ago about my connection with my wife, your face can just soften, and the light that's bright to begin with got even brighter. I could feel our hearts kind of touched each other's in that moment
Yeah.
in time. I wanted to comment on it, but it was just a little too risky to do in the moment, so I just let it go. But right now too, right now, as you're smiling, there's this inner beauty that just shines through. And I'm really, when I first signed to be a guest on your show, and it was at 8 o'clock Mountain Time, I thought, oh my God, what's this going to be like so early in the morning? As soon as I saw you, it was like, all right, this is cool. So how's that,
Oh,
Dan? How
thank
I
you.
do?
Oh, thank you. The reason why it is something that I guess because I'm a single man, it's something that I long for, and to hear that um, it lit up my internal energy because it I'm seeing and hearing that it is a reality, and I'm okay. My mate is there. She is on her way. And so when you were
Mm,
saying that, that was what I was receiving for me, because I'm looking and hearing something that it is a reality. It is not something that is not. And so that's why you saw that inner spark within me when you were um, mentioning that. And so I wanted to let you know what it was.
thank
You
you.
know.
Let me say two things about that. One is it's hard for me to imagine that there are not 50 of them beating down your door.
I am picky.
But for sure, that person is on her way.
Yeah, and that is what made me, because actually, to be honest with you, Doc, I was having this conversation within myself last 2 days. And so to hear it from you, it encouraged me, and you saw a response, because I recognize that when I do not believe that anything is done on this planet in with coincidence. I do not believe in those things. I used to, but I believe everything is purposeful, because we all came from the same source, and that the same source knows the need of all of us at every given moment. And I
Mm,
believe that people are placed in each other's path at every given moment. But we have to learn how to live in a state of awareness, I believe. And that is the lesson that we must um, walk. Some people call it the walk of faith. The walk of faith means that you're trusting your situation regardless of what it looks naturally, but you're seeing the outcome. And sometimes you're not even seeing it, but it is a visible thing that is within, not outside. And so I encourage people to come to this side of a servant. We hear Doc talked about it. He has produced his books that house all of his wisdom, and he still has more to share. And when you call him and you get into his space, we're going to provide all of those things so that you can get there and be encouraged, be moved, get your perspective moving from where it is. You've been living in that with that perspective for many years, and that outcome has not changed. What you need to do is change your perspective. It's not hard. You just have to be open to it. And when you're open to it, magical things happen. We call them miracles in the Christian world, and out in the world out here, we call it miracles. But miracles are always waiting, and miracles is a shift in your perspective, and you'll be able to attain what you need to do. And you guys have someone that houses much wisdom and has a powerful story to be able to tap into, extract information, extract wisdom, extract guidance, extract love, extract patience, empathy. All of those things are housed within Dr. St. John, and I want you guys to get his books. I say this over and over to my audience. When you read a book, you're having a private time with that audience, that author, and those words will be given the opportunity to become life and jump into your spirit and change your life and cause you to be resurrected from where you are. And so I want to thank you, Dr. St. John, for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. I absolutely enjoyed this conversation.
so did I, Ken, very much. Ken, do we have enough time to say one more word about
Please say as much as
relationship?
you want. Say as
Okay,
much as you want.
thank you. Just this one thing. The relationship that I described with my wife, it takes courage. It takes courage to be willing to reveal yourself in an
Mm-hmm.
ongoing way. And we change over time. And we have different, revelations. We have different parts of ourselves emerging. and to be willing to reveal ourselves to another person. I think it's one of the strongest healing forces. At the same time, it takes a lot of courage to, open up and share it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I think I call it nakedness. We ought to be able to find someone in our life to be naked with them. I'm not talking about physical nakedness. I'm
Absolutely.
talking about nakedness
Yes.
in thoughts, in belief, everything. That when she sees you naked, you see her naked. And in that space, love will
Absolutely.
always be the binding piece. Love, respect, all of those things are in that relationship with the nakedness because you have to give them and each other that space to be naked because it's absolutely all about being vulnerable. If you stand naturally, physically naked, you have to be vulnerable, and it goes the same way as well. So that's the relationship, Doc, that I'm looking for.
I'm sure you'll find it.
Again, Doc, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and honor. Hope we meet
Same
again.
here. Thank you, Doc. We will. I definitely will. I'm going to stay in touch with you. We definitely will.